allow me to start with, based on the background that you've just been given, I'll quickly go back to 2014 when my dad died and he left us a school that we needed to run. At the time I was working, and then that required us to basically make a pivot as a family to keep the legacy going, because like I told people back then, shutting down a school is not like shutting down a kiosk, because you are actually influencing people's lives within a school. And so I took it on, and we started running the school for me, which was a conflict because my daughter was doing an American curriculum called Accelerated Christian Education. And for me, it was a conflict because I could see what ACE was offering her and what we were offering the rest of the children with 844. And so for me, it was a desire to change. Unfortunately, we had a market that was not very responsive to a different type of curriculum. So we maintained 844. And on the other hand, we were running ACE for my daughter. So by the time 2020 is coming, we had our second born who had already started school. And she was a diehard for primary school. And she loved going because at the time I was also driving a school van. And for her, the excitement of going with a school van was the it for her. And so we got into school. She loved school. And then COVID hit. And suddenly we have to stay at home. So in the house, I have 2 children, one who is struggling with bullying in the school that she's in, and one who loves school. And so she's crying every day why COVID has come into the country to disrupt her daily routine. And so we started off on that footing, and we decided we cannot keep our children idle watching TV all day or on gadgets watching YouTube. And so we decided to get into a research mode of what will work for us. And for us, we realized, my husband and I, that a lot of research has gone into the world. And one of the biggest proponents of education and personalized education is Sir Ken Robinson. And based on the quote that you can see on the screen, I've highlighted one in particular that stands out, that you cannot predict the outcome of human development. All you can do, like a farmer, is create the conditions under which they will begin to flourish. And that is what we began thinking with my husband about the children that we had. How are they going to flourish? How long is this COVID manenos happening for us? What if there's another big one that is coming and impacting our children? And so we went on to discover during our research process that there are 3 different elements about education. First, there's schooling, which is the process of acquiring an education using a formal structure. And I realize there's Kanake who says he's opposed to home education. And for me, Kanake, I have to say that that is the place where I started from. I could not see how you can educate your children at home. Children belong to a school. And so when we, in between our research, then we also found out that education is very different from schooling. And what we have grown up with in 844 is schooling. Education, however, becomes the process of acquiring knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values through formal learning and instruction with the aim of helping people develop their full potential and lead productive lives. We had very good teachers in 844, teachers who cared about education, teachers who cared about the society, teachers who, if they saw you messing around on the road, they would pinch your ears and take you to your parent and just, reinforce those particular values. Sadly, today, that is not what is happening. So you can only teach the values that you have as a family in your own home. Then we also realize there's learning, which is a lifelong process through which we acquire, retain, apply, and grow in knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values. And that learning is why you will continue to go and do another course to, you are upskilling because your career requires you to, or because you feel that you want to. That's learning. And for me, then the question becomes, how are we teaching our children? How are we educating our children? Are we equipping them for a future that is unfolding daily in our sight? So we got to a place where in that vision, at 2020, when the schools are reopening, we got to a place where now we needed to make a decision. What do we do? Our firstborn decided Hashi is not going back to school. We found a system that works. We found a platform that works, a platform that allowed us to set goals, that allowed us to set goals for her, to set marks for her, that if she does a quiz, anything below 80% gives her a redo. Anything that that does not meet, that she does not understand, we will take care of it, because there's video learning, there's teachers on that particular platform, and it worked for her. Then there's a little one who decided, I am going to school like yesterday. And so she went back to school, but the other one stayed at home. So thankfully for me, my experience was that I had an office that I would go to, and I would take the big one with me, and she will have her own corner where she will actually do her studies as I supervise her. The other one went to class as usual. But that particular moment for us is the day that we realized we were at an inflection point, a point where we have to decide what is going on. With all the conspiracy theories, with all the information that was coming through, we wondered, what future are we creating for our children? And for me, I would like to remind you that, yes, the home education, and I want to call it schooling, because when we bring in the element of school, we are basically transferring school to home. And home education, for the sake of this conversation, I'll call it homeschooling. Homeschooling should not be an extension of the school setup, because for sure, as parents, we don't have the capacity and the ability that is in school. If you think about school, there's a driver who drives the kids to school. There's a principal who oversees the administrations. There's a chef in the kitchen who oversees the kitchen. There's a teacher in the classroom, one who teaches math, history, English, and all that. Then there's the district education board that comes in to check for the quality. If you decide to transfer all that into your home, it's going to be a big thing, and it's going to be an unbearable burden. However, the day you hold your child in your hands, the day you held them, if you already have children, that's the day that we signed up for the responsibility of stewarding them right. And as a parent, when you have chosen to take your child to traditional school, you have made particular choices. Some of them are very quiet. You have chosen that for 8 hours a day, sometimes 10 hours a day, you won't see your child. You have decided that someone else has the responsibility to impact your children with their values. Those are choices that we have made, and those are the simple, quiet choices that are related to that. And whatever choice you make, whenever you're going to make it, there is an ultimate price to pay. For me, particularly, it has meant that I change and I pivot how I fulfill my desires and dreams as a professional. For someone else, it might be that they have given up something else, but there will always be a trade-off as it is. And so that will be your point of where to start. There are those who are really thinking, and I've listened to the introductions, who are thinking, maybe this is something that I need to explore, but it's a place where you need to start and make that choice personally. For me, I have friends who started homeschooling way before, like even 7 years before, and I will go to their house and think, where? Homeschooling, me, I can't do that one. A couple of years on, I am actually in it, and I'm running my own race, not equivalent to theirs. There's also this other particular quote, and I'd like to leave it on for everyone to read it, maybe a minute or two, and I'll read it slowly. Public schools were created in the interest of industrialism. And please remember the ages with which our economic systems of the world have transitions, and now we're in the knowledge era. So with industrialism, the schools were made in that image. And in many ways, they reflect that factory culture. So imagine you're taking your children as a batch. Every January, like me, where I'm the school that I'm running, we're already calling in for admissions for January. So imagine input. You've gotten raw materials. You have decided who is going to sort, who is going to classify, who is going to do what. There's efficient division of labor as far as those children are concerned. This one will go to grade 1, this one will go to grade 2, like that, like that. Then the schools have divided the curriculum into specialist segments. So there are teachers who teach math, there are others who teach history. Imagine your child has gone into class the day that math is being taught a new concept, and they just can't hack it. And the teacher is delivering that math in the only way that they understand. When the exam comes, your child fails. Not that because that they don't know. It's because the teacher did not connect with the child at their level. They have particular units of time, 40 minutes, 35 minutes, 30 minutes, and then they go on break, work day and end breaks. And I'm sure that's not how we work. The students are educated in batches according to age, as if the most important thing is their date of manufacture. And they are given standardized tests, which are fine because they tend to gauge where your child is at. But does that mean, as always, that if I fail a test, does that mean that I am lesser than those who have passed the exam? So Sir Ken Robinson is a good place to start for those who are considering or have very many questions about education. His books are very, very good for reading and understanding and helping you make that decision. Technology and tools. We started with research. Our research could not have happened without the technology. And for us, any alternative path for your child's education and learning process should be one that empowers them to identify, explore, and make the most of available opportunities. So we have found in the past 4 years that technology is a simple multiplier. And by multiplier, I mean it helps to significantly enhance the capabilities and effectiveness of the system that you adapt for learning. Quietly in your spaces, I would ask you, wherever category of or class your child is in, how best do they learn? Are they auditory learners? Are they learners who learn best by reading for themselves? Do they prefer to have a teacher in front of them? Do they choose to be quiet and watch videos? How best do they learn? And then the second part of that question is, if they are in traditional school, is that delivered to them sufficiently? I'll give you a very simple example. Your child is learning a basic math concept like LCM, the least common multiple, or the greatest common factor, the GCF in math. That teacher knows how to explain the formula. But your child comes home, which is what we are currently experiencing with CBC. There is a way that the teacher has explained. And if you try and move away from that explanation, your child gets confused. It's not like at 844 where you will be shown 3 different methods of arriving at the answer, and then you choose the one that you understand the most. Nowadays, CBC is, if I teach you by breaking apart, that's what I want you to deliver. Deliver the answer by breaking apart. If I teach you that you need to go and read a composition, then remember. That is what they expect. They don't want you to change. So then the question becomes, if my child is a video learner, do I understand that today he has had or she has had a challenge understanding this new concept? So I need to spend time with a video from a particular YouTuber who explains that concept well enough for that child to understand. And that is where technology comes in. Here's another example. That was arithmetic. Here's another example on writing. Your child, like recently we had a situation with one of my teachers in social studies. So the teacher knows she needs to finish the syllabus by the end of September. But there is a particular chapter in social studies because of the width of the curriculum, the CBC curriculum. There's a chapter that the notes need to be written. And so what does the teacher do? The teacher takes the entire chapter in the textbook and tells the child to go and duplicate the notes in the exercise book. Now, as a parent, you come and find your child needs to write 8 pages of notes, and they have 2 hours plus another 3 homeworks to do. How are you going to help your child? So then technology comes back when you are here at home. If you superimpose that situation at home, you're coming back and telling your child, you have a wide subject. You have a social studies that covers a lot. You're learning about Kenya. It has a lot of notes. In 844, our teachers will write the notes on the blackboard. But today, because of technology, we are learning note-taking. You can use Evernote. You can use, whichever other tool that you have to take notes. And then that particular child learns note-taking. So as you can see, the child at home, they may be taking the same, like my second born does CBC. However, I have discovered that if I teach her how to shorten that time, she is getting more interested and she's understanding more. So technology will actually influence your writing, your collaboration skills, your arithmetic, reading, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. All those are influencing parts that are actually at the core of education. And this for us in homeschooling, you realize because the bar is set very, very high. I think I don't want to call it an inferiority complex or a way of thinking that as a parent, you're going to be judged because your child is not going to school because they have lesser education. A lot of home educating parents have set the bar very, very high for their children. And so you will find those children. In fact, currently there's a session called a World Scholars Cup. And you will find that there are even homeschoolers that are going on to debate in such forums. And they have used technology as a multiplier of those skills that their children have. So when you look at technology, you need to look at technology at not just at the basic levels. We have language models, your AIs have come in, your ChatGPT, your Perplexity, your clouds, and everything. Those are very basic uses. And every time when technology comes, when at home education level, and even at primary traditional school level or secondary, we need to ask ourselves, are we equipping our children for the knowledge market that we have? Right now, if you ask a Form 4 who is set to sit for their exam, and they have been in boarding school for all these years, they come and learn there's a ChatGPT, and what do they ask? Do for me this, do for me that. But do they know that there is a bigger world out there compared to all this? When you're home educating your children, you have an open canvas. You have a space where you can actually teach your children for the future that is coming. Will there be opportunities for plumbing? Most definitely so. Will there be opportunities for desk work? Most definitely. So what are we preparing our children for? And so this graphic here, it was just meant to show you the diversity that for us, we see ChatGPT, for us, we see Perplexity. But do we realize the potential, the industry that we are channeling our children towards? I believe there's one of us online that is in the data world. There are things in the data industry has just blown up. It's not just analytics, and it's not just data science, and it's not just machine learning. There is data literacy. That's a whole entire scope by itself. The language models, the Internet of Things, where are we placing our children in that? And for a curriculum that has 13 subjects, where do you fit in training your children for this? Or are we going to leave them until they go to high school? And then a lot of us will probably say, but there are 2 months coming of holiday. So I'm going to make sure that they enter those particular courses during those 2 months. That is very good. But as a parent, what is your involvement in that? Is the responsibility just paying for them for the courses, or is your responsibility also knowing what my child is going into? If your child is interested in animal care, and this is a world of knowledge that we are living in, how do the two merge? There's no teacher who is going to sit down and tell you this is what your child is interested in. That is your research as a parent that goes into that. So when you're taking charge of your child's education, and for the parents who are adamant about their children going into CBC, one of the most shocking things I learned in July, I sent some of my teachers to Ministry of Education to take, there was some course that they were doing, some refresher course on the curriculum. And the ministry guys, the Kenya Curriculum Development guys, told them the curriculum is changing every 2 weeks. To keep updated, stay glued to the KICD website. So for me, the question that I even asked the teachers is, how are you supposed to develop a learning program for children for 12 months or for 8 months when the curriculum keeps changing? Parents go and buy school books, textbooks in November or December. And then in January, they are told the curriculum has been merged. Like one of the biggest challenges this year has been, especially for grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, is the availability of textbooks that need to be used to teach a particular subject. So you've merged home science and nutrition and something else. So the class teacher or the subject teacher needs to carry all those books and identify which topic they're teaching. The second shocking thing was when it comes to exams, a lot of schools were told, go and set the exams, then bring them to us so that we verify whether they match the standard. So when you talked about standardized testing, whose standard are we talking about? Are we talking about a private school? Are we talking about a government school? Who's the regulator of standard at this point in time? So it's an ongoing process. And my fear and my concern about CBC, in my opinion, was initiated after the American curriculum. And I keep thinking it's like ACE. So I'll give you like a back end for ACE. ACE for me was a shocker the first day we introduced our child, because we were told your child will come in, they will be taught how to set their daily goals for the subjects that they are doing. And then after every page they do, they will be given the score key, which is like a MacBook. They will mark for themselves. Coming from 844, that was shock, awe, and wonder at the same time, because I'm wondering, how is a child supposed to mark for themselves? And she started in grade 1, until we went through a training course as parents and we got to understand that it's not just scoring, because what are you teaching at that point? Right now, it's do an exam, teacher will mark for you. Do 10 questions in class, teacher will mark for you. So where is the element of honesty? Where is the element of self-assessment? So for me, CBC was sort of engineered against ACE in the sense that the child takes charge. The child comes to the forefront of their education, because it's a I do, you do, we do. That's the bottom line about CBC. And it's very good. However, our challenge as Kenya remains implementation. Because as a private school, there's a private school that has enough resources to modify and to make CBC work for its clients. Then there is your public school that has absolutely no resources, that is making do with the little that they are getting. They're just going to teach the basic. Then there is a budget school like me that will come up and say, guys, you know what? We will also do better than the bare minimum, but it's only as much as we can manage based on the school fees that we charge. So what will we have 5 years, 10 years from now? We're going to have people whose education levels, they all went to the same school, they all went to the same curriculum, but however, we are talking different capacities and different capabilities. So when you take charge of your child's education and you decide to pursue home education, my experience has been, it is more about integration than it is about balance. Balance is unachievable, in my opinion, when it comes to homeschooling, because you have different expectations. You need to be able to establish and inculcate your family values. 4 things you need to teach your children. Teach them how to learn. And that way, whichever space they go to, whether they go to university, whether they go to college, whether they go to a TVT, as long as you have taught them the basics of how to learn, they will learn, no matter the experience that they have. Throw them back into school, maybe because of one reason or the other. We have home educators who get to a place where they say, I can't teach my children anymore, and therefore I need to take them back into traditional school. That child probably has never been to that class. But if you have taught them how to learn, they are going to ace that environment. Teach them how to set goals. Teach them that goals are their responsibility and mark them off. Teach them how to do note-taking. It's a skill. You sit in a meeting, you're supposed to take all these notes and you're supposed to remember key things. Who taught you how to do note-taking? Did you learn it on the job? Do you want your child to learn it on the job? Do you want your learn to, even those who are particularly in traditional school, teach them how to do note-taking. It will help them at this point. And teach them how to communicate. I would actually go as far as saying, I would invite you to a Friday sports sessions that we normally have. And then I will invite you as parents to actually interact with those particular children. Don't even interact with parents, but try and interact with the children and see how they communicate. And draw conclusions for yourselves about the influence that children who are educated at home make. So for your journey, as I come to almost the end, do not extend homeschooling to your home education. I think I said that earlier. And as Ivy will set rules of, do we come to school? Do we come to class with PJs? Do we take tea on the learning table? What do we do? What time is breakfast? What time is break time? What are our calendars? TV? Are we learning with music on? Those are structures and parameters of engagement. This, for me, has worked very differently for the different children that I have. I have one who sits quietly, wakes herself up at 4:30, starts her day, even while I'm asleep. By the time I'm waking up with the second one, she's already done with about 1 or 2 subjects. Then there's another one who decides, if it's break time, Mom, you said 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock, it's time for break. I am not sitting down to do anything extra. Then there's another one who works while she sings and she stands. That, for me, those different personalities that we're experiencing has caused me to actually set up the structures for engagement of each of them individually. Adaptability. Adaptability is, for me and for most home educators, the ability to respond to every morning. You'll wake up with a grumpy child. How do you ensure that they don't influence the others? You wake up with one who has a fever. How do you ensure the education goes on for the rest, but you need to be able to attend to this other one? You wake up, you have a family emergency. How do you adapt your school? Probably there's a travel that's coming up. Will you carry your school? Will you carry reading material? What will you do? Present parenting. This cannot be overstated for home education. And for me, one of the things I'm most grateful about is that we begin to know our children more than how we knew them when they were going to traditional school. And then there's commitment. There are days that you will feel like not waking up, but you remember, this is my responsibility. One of the things you'll discover as you're researching for home education is that the mother is usually the primary facilitator and tutor for these children. There are spaces where they have employed tutors, teachers, but even then the supervision is usually the mother. And for this, I will say to the gents in the room that if your wife or the mother of your children is the one that is offering the basic education, remember I mentioned all the people that are involved in a school setup? This mother is the one who is all that. So if your teacher at home, if the mother goes down in the morning with a flu, school ain't happening that day. If mommy wakes up and she is feeling totally out, or she has some emotional things that are going on, then you know your school will be affected. And so I've come to believe that a support system is very, very important, and a community with which your child will need to engage. It's a process of unlearning, learning, and relearn. I have to admit, there are days when I wake up in a cold sweat asking myself, what am I doing? And then I have an encounter with a child during the day, and they remind me why I was doing this in the first place. And then they remind me the things that I need to unlearn and absorb, because it's a continuously learning journey. And do not compare your journey with any other person's. So in home education, there are those who follow the traditional calendar of 14 weeks of work, then 4 weeks of holiday. There are those who adopt 6 weeks of work, 1 week's break, 6 weeks of work, 1 week break, and continuously like that. So it's never the same for everyone, even the curriculum. And the final thing, extend grace to yourself, because mistakes will happen, challenges will occur. There will be good times, there'll be not so good times. And you just need to remind yourself that mistakes will be expected. They're a necessary part of the learning. They're to be respected, and they're to be inspected, and they're to be corrected. And that way, your mistakes will always be the platform upon which you build towards your success. So, if you're ready to change, trust me, you already possess the most important requirements, which is concern of your child's education. You have an interest in your child's future, and you have love for your child, that you say you want to spend every single moment with them during the day. As a parent, with a long history of your child from birth to present, you're the best placed to teach your child and to prepare them for a successful future. Your child has a right to know that he or she belongs to you and is related to you, not so much by what you give them materially, but by being their teacher of values and the substance of life. Thank you so much for your attention. And I would just like to leave you with this quote, that if you don't have a plan for your children, then they become part of somebody else's plan. And if CBC is somebody else's plan, and you're taking your children there daily, especially for those who are in primary, let me just say this. If you have a child who has not yet hit grade 7, please, I request you, check out what plans the government has for the current grade 7, the current grade 8, and the next year grade 9. If you're ready for that, whatever has been cooked in that pot, then please go ahead. However, I repeat, if you don't have a plan for your children, then someone else takes them in and makes them part of their plan. So thank you very much for the time. I don't know whether we take questions now or after Ivy.
After. Kishi can go ahead and introduce Ivy.
Thank you so much, Wangari, for that insightful session. I know we have a lot of questions. Let's just have Ivy present. I'll do her bio. Ivy is an urban planner with a strong foundation in digital marketing. Currently, as a dedicated stay-at-home mom, she has embraced the Montessori method in her daily routine. Her journey in homeschooling began with a desire to provide a nurturing and educational environment for her firstborn. By using Montessori principles, she focuses on creating a learning space that encourages self-directed activity, hands-on learning, and a sense of independence. In addition to her role as a mother, she runs a business that offers toys and printable designs to support and enhance Montessori-inspired play at home. These resources are crafted to foster creativity, problem-solving skills, and a love for learning in young children. And as she's approaching the end of her maternity, she's excited to return to offering sensory classes where she can continue to explore and share innovative ways of engaging children in meaningful and enjoyable learning experience. Welcome, Ivy. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kishi. I don't have a presentation, but I wish to share a video so that I feel like I'm talking to people and you can see me. I'm going to just talk about how we started and how we are finally here. So at 7 months old, I had my firstborn. At 7 months, I was wondering, what do I do with a baby at home for all the hours she's awake? Because you don't want them to be on cartoons throughout, and you know the effects about screen time on our kids. So I went on researching, and that is how I landed on Montessori and decided to pick up on it and try it. The reason as to why I picked up Montessori was because it aligned with me in terms of the principles of Montessori and what I truly believe in, that I'm going to take you through the principles. And so we did that from 7 to now she's turning 4. So now we're doing kindergarten, which is now homeschooling in kindergarten, but in Montessori, we call it Montessori primary, which starts from 3 to 6 years old. So that is basically the reason as to why it started as a play. We didn't start as homeschooling. So we started as doing activities at home so that I can engage her and not keep her doing screen time or just, yeah, mostly nowadays it's screen time and indoors. So I wanted her to be outdoors and to have activities that she can do. So when we got to 4 years is when somehow I decided, okay, because I've been doing this thing for now, that was 3 years, and I can see she's learning because by then she had started to read on her own. She knew her numbers. She was quite well off. So I was like, okay, maybe I see myself going into now fully homeschooling her, because I'd always told myself, when we are paying for crèche, we are paying for playgroup, and ideally what they go there to do is they go to play at school. So I wanted that one is easy. When you think about it, you're like, that one, it's just play. You can play at home. we can do play at home. And then that money that instead I'm paying for school, I can use that money to now buy items for her to play with it at home. So when now she was going, and I kept asking her, Mom, baby, are you ready to go to school? And she'll say, no, I don't want to go to school. I hate school. This now took me back to the place where I myself hated school. I hated kindergarten. I cried. I cried the whole of first term. I did not want to go to school. I did not see why I'm being taken to school at 3 years. I was ever crying at school every day, every morning, stuck at the door. I'm not even going to sit down. I'm stuck at the door. I'm crying. The dad, his story is also hilarious. He was taken to school. He only went to school because he was bought for new uniforms, stationaries, a school bag, and then he was told he's going to school. So to him, he was excited. Yay, new items for me. So he went to school the first day. In the evening, he says he gave out everything. He went back home without shoes, without clothes. No, his uniform, he went with his uniform. He had given out all the books and all the stationaries. So even him, he didn't go to kindergarten. He went at 7 years, he went to class 1. But me now, I went through the whole thing. So when she categorically said she doesn't want to go to school, we listened to her. And then we were also having a second baby by the time she was supposed to be joined, because she was supposed to join in September. The baby had come already in January. So he was going to be around 7 months. We did not want the continuous flu that we hear. Babies are always having flus because the big one is in school, so it's a complete cycle. So I did not want to put now this little one in a cycle of giving him antibiotics, because the sister keeps making him sick. And then I didn't find a good school near me. When you're looking for school, there's an idea that you want. There's something that you want. So I went around 3 schools that are around me, because again, I didn't want to take her far away from home. You don't want a child to be waking up at 6 or 5 so that they can go to school, like a good school that you'll consider, okay, this is a good school. So to me, I went around to the schools that were close to us, and none of them, because I'd invested in her play, none of the schools were up to the standard that her playroom was. Her playroom was way, way better than now the schools that I would have taken her. And then for a reason, the last one it's a bit vague. I did not want to wake up at 7 a.m. There's just something in me that I have done when you go to boarding since class 5 and you're always waking up for prets at 4 a.m. There's just something about waking up early, and I'm not a morning person. So I was like, I can't hack again. I can't go back to that system of continuously waking up early. I'd rather work late than wake up early. So those are the reasons that I decided, okay, let me try now homeschooling. So that is how I changed now from play, and now we started calling what we do homeschooling. So some of the principles were respect for the child, because with Montessori, before I talk about the principles, let us talk about some of the curriculums or some of the methods that I used to teach, because we have Waldorf, we have our normal CBC. Waldorf is more of play, but in a fairy tale. They play like the imaginative play. They really encourage imaginative play. And if you have a child when they reach 3, you'll notice their imaginative play goes on another level. So there's Waldorf, then there's the CBC. CBC, as Wangari has talked about it, you've heard about CBC. And then there was Montessori, and then there was Christian-based, and then there's nature school. So what I've taken Montessori, fully Montessori, a bit of Waldorf, and then I love nature school because the child is able to be nature. So we implement Montessori every day for 3 hours, 9. I'm not going to say the time because it's not about the time. It's about the time she wakes up. So if she wakes up, she has 30 minutes of play, outside play, to wake up calmly. So that was also another thing that was important to me. How does my child start her day? Because if I look at myself, like how we were taught to start our days started hectic. It's you wake up, you're dressing up, you're having breakfast, you're out to get the school bus continuously for such a long period of time, for weeks, and you get tired. So for me, I wanted something that was different. So her waking up is waking up. She has a slow morning, and then now we go to class. And then after that, she has, because the imaginative play is quite high right now at 4 years. So she does a bit of Waldorf, and then we finally end our days most of the times with a walk. So we do a bit of nature school. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just reading. So that is what that is what we implement. So some of the principles that we're following is respect for the child. I love Montessori because of how we respect the child. The child tells you what they want to do, and it is your duty as an adult to sit and listen. This might look like your child is controlling you. No, the thing about it is you create an environment that you create environment for your child. So if I've created a good environment, an environment that I can control the variables, then it means whatever she says, I had already foreseen whatever she's going to say for us to do. So it's easy for me to say, yes, we can do that. So for her, she feels she has control, but I am the one who has control in everything that she does. That is such a big misconception when people think about Montessori. People think the child is controlling the adult, but it's the other way around. The adult is controlling the environment, so the child is thriving in an environment created by an adult. And then there's the absorbent mind. Please, guys, if you look at your child, when they're born, they do nothing. And then we groom them, we're growing them. Do you notice how their mind works? Like they're always learning new things. Even that is why we say do not curse in front of a child, because you will curse, they'll curse tomorrow because they listen. Their mind is so absorbent. Whatever you do, whatever you teach them, they learn it. Their minds are just like a blank canvas. And it's from 0 to 7 years where they are learning things by the way you say it is the way they're learning it. And then we have the sensory periods where our kids, when you look at them from 0 to 1, what is that thing that they always want to learn? They want to learn how to walk, crawl, eat. They're those things. So Montessori has divided it in such a way that we follow the child according to their sensitive period. For example, at around 3 years, they start to want to read. At around 4 years, they want to learn how to write. And 4 to 6 is also a sensitive period for math. So that is when you start introducing like math concepts. So that has made it very easy for me to understand my child's development and how I can follow up with my child's development to offer the best. And then I've already talked about the prepared environment, where we create an environment where they can thrive, not an environment where they control you and make you feel like this is now crazy. And then you follow the child, freedom. I've talked about freedom within limits. And then there's the intrinsic motivation. Montessori is set up in a way where, if you've seen their classes, we have we have shelves. The shelves have materials. So the shelves have divided into subjects. We have culture. Culture is they learn about the world. We have math. They learn simple from numbers to counting. That we have practical life. Practical life is the things that we learn at home. But the things that we learn at home, that is the foundation of our daily learning. That is how you learn how to. If you're good at what you do at home, then you're good at going to do schoolwork. If you pour something, I'm going to sweep it, or I'm going to wipe it. They learn about transferring, the way that they are able to carry out things that they do at home, because those things are done in an order. If they can do that, they most definitely can learn. So there's practical life, and then there's language. Language is reading and writing, and then we have math, we have some science, and an art area. So if you create an environment where all these subjects are accessible to your child. So we have a shelf that is math, a shelf that is language, a shelf that is culture, and the child is able to go and pick a particular thing that day they feel like learning. Today, I feel like counting to 1 to 20. They go pick up 1 to 20. They count 1 to 20 today. Tomorrow they master that. They count 1 to 30 the other day, like that. So you've created an environment where you're not the one who's teaching. They're intrinsically learning. They're learning, like, for example, let me use my daughter. My daughter is 4 years. She's obsessed with the body. She wants to know which bones are where. She wants to know how digestion is taking place, which muscles help with what. I have not taught her, but she keeps on asking me questions. Mommy, this one and this one. Mommy, I've eaten this. I think now it's in my tummy. It's now going to the small intestines. We're waiting for it to come out. So I've created an environment where we can now go through those things. Like we can just go through digestion, through stories. Yes, she's a 4-year-old, but she's talking about digestion. So you can go through stories. We have maybe even the solar system. She can pick up items about the solar system and learn about the solar system herself, not me. Herself, she picks up on what she wants to do. There are parts of me that, yes, there are parts of the adult has to do, because your child will always choose. Sometimes if right now she's so into digestion, which means she's not going to take up anything else, which means I have to encourage her to maybe do a bit of math, a bit of art, so that at least it is balanced and it's not just what she wants to do. There's a bit of that. But when they're intrinsically doing things, kids learn faster as opposed to when they're being forced to learn what they're not interested in. So let's talk about what are some of the material. Montessori is very material heavy. Like the same way I've mentioned their shelves. I wish I'd done, and I'd show you even our class, but I'm not there. The same way I've said that their shelves, those shelves have materials on them, and each material teaches a particular thing. Let's say we have materials for counting 1 to 10. We have materials to count in tens. We have materials to do multiplication, addition, division. We have cubes to do that. We have fractions. You see, it's material invested. Like you have to have materials. It's very hands-on. They have to see like something tangible, making it a very expensive endeavor if you want to do it. But it also makes it like they play with tangible. Like it makes learning interesting as opposed to being lectured on this is this and this is that. How about when you give them materials and they're able to look at these materials and investigate on their own terms, you see? So materials is heavy. I do not have the complete Montessori classroom, but we make do with what we can, because you can always DIY stuff. You can always Google and DIY stuff and make things that will work. And you do not need the complete class at home. That is another misconception. You need a complete Montessori class for you to run Montessori at home. No, you need the principles to guide you on your child, the principles and just learning about your child and knowing the subjects. Then you can run Montessori at home. Another thing is, what curriculum do you use? So in Montessori, we have a scope and sequence of how we introduce things. That one is easily available online. You just have to Google and then you follow the scope and sequence. That is what I've done. Some people will sell to you the scope. They'll tell you it's a Montessori curriculum. The problem about buying a curriculum without first knowing what you're supposed to do, how Montessori runs, is you're going to be left frustrated because one, your child doesn't want to follow the curriculum. As I'd said, we follow the child's interests. So let's say the curriculum is saying this week, the child should learn CVC words. Them, they're not ready to learn the CVC words, but they'll rather read about something, like use a book. You as the parent, you're set at wanting them to do the curriculum, the CBC, then they want to do a book. Now you're at a standstill because the child will not listen to you and they're having a hard time. And they're having a hard time to follow, you see. So instead of buying curriculums, I'll say understand what you're doing. If you understand the method of education you've decided to use, at least there, if you understand the method of curriculum that you're using, someone else is not trying to tell you what to do. Like you're not trying to keep up. For example, if you follow me on social media and you see I've posted about Kayla is doing this, Kayla is doing that, and you do not understand the method itself, you want to copy me. Then you're not giving your child an education that is for them. You're doing it to copy me, but my child is on a different level, completely different interests, just a completely different person. And your child is also a different person. So if you understand the method, and then maybe you now buy the curriculum, you can choose on what to do and what to leave out. What does it look like? Who does the homeschooling? I'm the one who do the homeschooling for now. I'm the teacher, the curriculum organizer. Because again, Montessori is not that huge in Kenya. Even if I'm to buy a curriculum right now, I'm going to buy a curriculum of people in the States. That curriculum doesn't fit my child. For example, she's supposed to start to do continents. We've done the continents. So now we are supposed to divide it now and go deep into continents. Their first continent is North America. Why would I want Kayla to do North America? Why not start with Africa? So if I'm buying the curriculum, it doesn't really fit into Kenya and into Africa. Let's say I buy a curriculum that teaches something else. I've seen birds, backyard birds. There are birds that I don't even know. I've never even seen them. Why would I want to buy that? So that is also another challenge. I have to make our learning to be things that are within her. Instead of, you see, us in school, as we were taught about everything, even if some things are not, they're not relevant to us and our situation, but we are taught them. How about we make education in such a way we learn about things that are conversant to us and not to other people? So yeah, and then I've already talked about how our day looks like and how we run our day. The beauty of homeschooling is you decide how to run your day. And the beauty, another thing is I only have like only 3 hours, because a complete work cycle only has 3 hours. The rest of the day, she chooses whatever she wants to do. She wants to run outside the whole day, she runs. She wants to water plants the whole day, she does that. So she's not sat in a class the way we did from 8 to 4 or 8 to 3. She doesn't wake up early. She doesn't sit in class for the long periods of time. She's not confined to eating what is at school. And I know people want to say, another thing we want to say is, but my child, I want my, what I mean is, we want to say, like, how will my child learn how to live in a world where, you know, school teaches you how to live in a certain way, following the rules, what and what, but at home, they're also following rules. They're also living within some limits, you get, but they're choosing for themselves in which limits they're living with. It's not, they're not following whatever the teacher wants. There's a friend of mine who took the kid to school. So the child said they were doing Play-Doh, even though Play-Doh, they were doing Play-Doh. And then the teacher was like, okay, now because they have set up times, there's break, there's whatever, the teacher was like, now we are done with this activity. Let's move to the next. The child clearly wasn't done because, as I said, there are periods where kids are really interested in something, like they're obsessed. When a child doesn't know something, they're obsessed with that particular thing. So the child is like, no, I don't want to move to the next thing. I want to do what I'm doing. She's 3. I want to do what I'm doing. And the teacher says no. So the parents are called to school because the parents are called to school because that is what, like, the teacher is like, the child is not listening to us, so we need them. We need you to talk to your child to go to school. Something else that I do that I'd like to talk about is I ensure that as much as we're doing homeschooling, like Wangari has mentioned, sometimes as a parent, you just get to a point that it becomes hard. Maybe responsibilities change and you want your child to go back to school or to start school. I ensure that I teach her in a way that she can go to school. For example, when I visited the schools, potential schools that she can go to one day, I look at what, by the time she's maybe 7, if she joins school at 7, what are some of the things that the 7-year-old in that school do? Because I don't want her to take her to school one day and she's so behind, like she doesn't understand anything, or she's left completely behind. So ensure that whatever 7-year-olds are doing at potential schools, like it's in sight that we are going somewhere, so that at least she's not left behind. I hope that makes sense. Being told we want to move. Let me just talk about some few challenges that we face and some of the advantages. Some challenges that I face is navigating our relationship. How is mommy? Mom is mom now. In 30 minutes time, mom is going to turn a teacher. How do you navigate the relationship between being the mom and being the teacher, and her listening to a teacher? Because mommy is lovey-dovey, mommy is offering that security in the relationship, but the teacher, you have to listen to a teacher, you have to listen, she has to guide you. Yeah, that is also that is a bit of a challenge sometimes. She doesn't want the teacher, she wants the mom. Sometimes she doesn't want the mom. She thinks we're supposed to learn the whole day, yet I have other things to run. So that is there. The other challenge I've talked about is preparing the materials to fit us in Kenya right now, as opposed to just teaching her everything. And then there are also very few people to look up to in terms of Kenya, like most people, and even if people are doing homeschooling, most are not sharing their journey. So it looks like it's an elusive thing. You feel like sometimes you're like an island, yeah. And one of the bigger advantages are, it's a one-time big investment for sure in her education. If I look at buying the materials and what was going to pay for fee, and the materials don't get spoiled and they've been used for 60 years. So it's going to be capital intensive to buy everything. But again, it's an investment for the both of them, and they can always sell the materials. And then I love the fact that it is so child-centered and focused towards her learning needs. Whatever she wants to learn, if we were going to learn this thing and I see she's not interested, but there's something she's picking up, I can leave about every other thing. And now we focus on what she wants to learn. And then there's no comparison about with the other kids. Hey, see, so-and-so is doing so well. See, so-and-so is listening to the teacher. You never listen to the teacher. See, people are supposed to do this. You're the bad child. Like her, she doesn't have that, which has allowed her to bloom in herself. She's just herself. She's happy in being herself. If you ask her, she says, no, me, she's just herself. I love that about it. And then when do you start to get consistency? The other thing is when you want to try and start, if you want to ever try and start doing the homeschooling, it's not going to be easy. It's not like it's just like drinking water. Imagine your child has never been learning at home. They know home is for play, or home is just something they relax, they watch. And then you're coming in, you know, from this time to this time, I want us to be doing this and this and this. There's definitely going to be like a fight. They're fighting you. They don't want to do it. So keep retrying. For us, let's say like last year when I was really heavily pregnant, I couldn't really homeschool her. It wasn't important for me to homeschool her. It was still preschool, just play school if I had taken her to school. So I stopped completely. But this year we were 4, so we needed to seriously homeschool. When I tried homeschooling her, even though we had been doing it for like 3 years, there was a lot of pushback, there was a lot of crying, it was just not happening. So we stopped, and I tried this 3 times. 3 times I was trying. I leave her for a month, I stop it, I go back and try. So that I'm not forcing her again to learn. Learning should not be, it's not about tears, it's about her wanting to do it from herself. I want to learn, I want to engage mommy, you see? So try and try, retry, try and retry again. You'll get there where it's a point of you can do it. And then the other thing that I'd like to mention as I finish is, if you're a parent, we like to second guess ourselves. I have not been to a teaching school. I have never been to a class. I don't have experience or anything. But they say the best people to offer education to their kids are the parents. Because when you're a parent, all you're doing is you're researching and reading articles about this, articles about that, different methods, and you're trying to put all this for your child. So a parent is the best person to homeschool their kids. I hope that was of help. And thank you so much for giving me the time.
Thank you so much, Ivy. I will request our PE to take us through the Q&A section. We can begin with those in the chat for both Wangari and Ivy.
Thank you, Keshi. I want to check whether there's anything on the chat. Thank you very much, Wangari and Ivy, for the talk. Let me check whether there's anything on the chat yet. I don't see anything on the chat that is a question. So I'll take it to those of us on the call. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and mute. IPP Joel, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the conversation that we've had. At the beginning, I was of the school of thought that traditional school is the best way. And after the conversation, I still feel that for me, that's the best way to go ahead. So I have a couple of questions. Number one, real life socialization. How do you go about it, given the fact that the child is confined in an environment where they do not experience different cultures, different people, different worldviews? That's number one. Then the second one, there's an issue of values, the values that will impact your children as opposed to the value somebody else's impacts them. That's, I think, I would strongly want to disagree with you, because any parent here would want the best for their children. And that's why you'll find that the research, the schools they go to, even if it's the CBC school, there are values you want your children to be impacted with. And again, homeschooling, you're still impacting them with your values. Sorry to say this, but who said your values are the best in the world for your children to grow with? Then the next one is on the question of mass education and the evolution of education. Mass education again was instituted with the rise of industrial revolution, and now as we're going into the technology revolution, you're seeing a couple of things happening in education sector that are in line with that. So when you're doing your homeschooling, how then do you merge the realities of the world to what you're doing at home in this bubble that you've created for you and your child without really exposing them to real life socialization? So those are my questions so far.
Thanks, IPP Joel. Your question was directed to Wangari or to Ivy? Or both? IPP Joel?
Hello. So the first ones were based to to both Ivy and Wangari, especially on how do they overcome real life socialization, which would typically happen in a school. And then the other one is based to Wangari on the values impact that the schools give as opposed to what parents give. So I just wanted her to explain how then she got around that conclusion that about the values, and yet we know there are some value-based schools. There are Christian-based schools. There are schools Catholic up to religion. There are schools that are academically aligned. There are schools that are sports aligned. And as a parent, you already know where your kids' strengths are. So yeah. So those are my few questions and remarks.
Okay. Thank you, IPP Joel. Wangari, you could go first, and then Ivy can answer the second part. Then because of time, we could take 2 more questions.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I will respectfully request Joel to not see home education as a bubble we have created, because it's not a bubble. There is close to 1,000+ families right now in Kenya that are doing homeschooling. We have different communities. We have different spaces through which the children engage and get to meet other children. So I'll give you an example. There is a community that meets, they do a curriculum called Classical Conversations. They meet every Monday somewhere, and there are clusters. So those are different communities. They don't necessarily need to be Christian. They don't necessarily need to affiliate themselves with a particular religion. They just simply meet for the purposes of educating and exposing their children for the growth that they have. So in terms of socialization, right now, maybe in years gone by, there was a challenge, like Ivy said. Sometimes the homeschooling and the home education journey can feel very, very lonely because you don't know who you can associate with. But there is an entire community. We have East Africa Community of Homeschoolers. There's another one called Bingwa. There are several groups. Annually, there are conferences that allow parents to meet and engage, and also the children participate. Those same communities also have what we call the co-curricular, what would essentially fall under co-curricular activities. They might decide to meet every 2 weeks. They might decide to meet every month. And it's purely parent driven because it's for the interest of the children. So you'll find probably a community on maybe Kiambu Road will have the children go for training at maybe the fire station. You will have them invite teachers to teach them robotics. You'll probably have teachers inviting them to teach them how to crochet. So there are forums currently. There has been a really, really significant growth in communities that enable the socialization factor to also stand out for home education. Then there is sports. There's a particular group, I think, called Next Gen. Also for them, they have specifically niched themselves for sports. And so they end up doing that. When I talked about a value system, my values are not superior to yours, and yours are not superior to anybody else's. And that was not what I meant at all. What I said that as a family, there are bare minimums that we say, in this home, we respect each other. In this home, we do this, we do that. That's our bare minimum. So even when we are going out, there is a basis upon which we are starting on. What I have found, especially in schools, is because of all these diversities that we are having, we have different people. You have a classroom full of 25 children. There is one who has been taught differently from your child and differently. Yes, there is a communal and umbrella value that that particular school is upholding. No problem whatsoever. And for where I stand as a home educator, no judgment for anybody who decides to take their child to a traditional school. I run a private traditional school. I have seen its benefits. I have seen its shortcomings. So when I stand, I'm standing with a view of both ends. Are there days when I would want my child to go to a traditional school? Yes, maybe there are days like those. But overly generally, and when I look at the entire scope of what I'm doing, I believe that what I want for my child, for their future, this is what is best. For you, on the other hand, what you're doing for your child, that is what you have chosen, and that is to be respected. So when I talk about a value system, is what's their basis? Where do they start? Then they go in and adapt what I did not teach them. They will adapt. That is why I've taught them how to learn. So I think that is what I would say. And in terms of alignment, there comes a point. I'm seeing Wanja Mugwongo who asked, I hope I pronounced that right. Did you transition your older child from mid-school to high school in the same curriculum? Yes, it was in the same curriculum. Were there any notable challenges? Yes, there were, especially understanding mathematics. I was not a mathematician. The father took over from there. So I'm simply a supervisor for her. But yes, there were challenges and we have managed to overcome them with time. I'd like to, just I know for the interest of time, I'd like to read for you something that my daughter wrote when we were doing a parent-teacher conference last week. And she said that having understood the challenges of doing biology, chemistry, and all these subjects, she asked herself, why is education important? And she surprised us by saying, it elevates your consciousness, it activates your growth, it changes you. It opens you to see the world you live in, and it helps you to learn about the world around you. For me, that a child will come to that particular point and they are 15, sets them apart for the future. So even if we get to a place where she needs to go back to traditional school, she'll be fine. And I think so that I can allow Ivy some time, I think we can finish my answer there.
Yeah, thank you, Wangari. Ivy, there's a bit of a question from Joel that was addressed to you.
Okay. So let's talk about socialization. Socialization, when you look at us as human beings, are we only socializing with our peers? Because in class, a class only has maybe 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds. Is that socialization? Shouldn't we say socialization is the ability to be able to communicate with everyone across all age groups? So a school doesn't teach socialization, is how you're able to communicate and address yourself across with everyone. How are you able to talk to your grandparents? Are you able to communicate to your parents, to your siblings? So the first bit with kids with socialization starts at home. So the issue about it being something that is learned at school, it's not. Most of the time our kids are spending time in class quiet and listening, but not talking to one another and engaging with one another. Even in our workplaces, we are not the same, we are not peers in our workplaces. It's people of different age groups. So as homeschoolers, we do make a point of having our kids learn how to talk to different people. For example, if you take them to the mall, they're talking to an attendant, they're talking to a cleaner. If you take them to somewhere they're playing, they're learning to socialize. It doesn't have to happen in school. That is what I'm saying. It can happen anywhere and everywhere. And on the issues of mass education, like the way when you research about education, before it became mass education, our kids were educated at home with their moms. Their mothers are always and will always be the educators of the kids. So when we think that it is a must for a child to be in a school, for them to get that is the education. That is not education. Education is the ability to want to learn and to learn things. And you can learn anywhere and everywhere. That is why right now we have people learning digitally. We have now the schools. We have homeschooling, which is really coming up. We have even the people who don't go to class and their kids are doing nature school. They're absolutely not learning how to count and not learning how to read, but they're in their self, they're learning about how nature. And if we see, when we look at all these people are going to impact the world in their own different ways, because all of us have to be unique in order for us to impact the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wangari. Thank you, Ivy. Wanja, I see your hand is still up. I don't know whether there's anything, any part of the question that was not answered conclusively. You can feel free to unmute.
Sorry, I should have put my hand down. Thanks, PE. No, she did answer the question very well. And I'm excited with the response she gave. And yes, I could relate with a lot of what they shared, especially given that I'm currently transitioning. So yes.
All right.
Let me lower my hand.
All right. Thank you, Pipi Wanja. Is there any other question? Someone can unmute. No other question. All
yes,
right.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. I think this is purely based on curiosity here. If you're doing the home education and for one reason or another, you are not able to proceed with it, how do we transition back to the traditional methods, or how do we go back to for lack of a better word, to CBC or to 844, whatever system that the government is going to introduce to us? How do you go back to school, to the traditional way of schooling? Either of you can answer, but probably maybe Wangari, because she has an older child.
Okay, thank you for that question. So we have several situations where we have had children going back for family reasons to traditional school. And one of the primary things that I mentioned in the presentation is teaching your child how to learn. Because then whichever space they enter, they'll be able to take up the learning process and thrive as it is. However, the other silent part of that transition usually is engaging the child and letting them understand the why this is not possible. Like for us at home, there is every term, I always make sure I ask a question. Do you still want to continue with home learning, or do you want to go back to school? And I ask for the reasons why. And then that's what I normally capitalize on, and also ask them, what are the shortcomings that you're feeling we are not able to meet? So constant engagement with your child, especially when they are in this particular environment, is very, very important. Then there's also the psychological journey that you need to take with the child into that transition back into traditional school. And there is usually something that in home education is called an exit plan, which is how do you intend to exit your child into university, into college, and into that area. Remember, homeschooling doesn't cover university. But if you teach your child how to learn, how to do some of those basic things that I said, to do their research, to write their papers even when they're young, they will, and also like Ivy and I have said, interacting with people who are older than us, it prepares them to engage with those other levels of socialization that we may not be able to meet them at this point. So there's a psychological journey that you need to take. There's an engagement journey that you need to take. And also being open with the schools where you're going to do the admission, that this has been my child. And the one big thing about homeschool at the point of transition is the records that you have kept. So it's probably something that we didn't cover, maybe didn't come up, but your records as you're homeschooling are very, very important. Any quizzes, any tests, any projects, any portfolios, a LinkedIn platform, a blog page where your child simply blogs what they have done, the papers they have written, all that adds up to how they transition either back to traditional school or to high school and college. So record keeping is a very, very big, important part of that transition as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that answer. Let me see. I don't think we have any other question on the chat. Any other question from those of us on the call before I hand the meeting back to Mr. President? Any burning question, feedback? Okay. Thank you very much, Ivy and Wangari. I'll take the meeting back to the president.
Thanks a lot, PE, for taking us through the Q&A. At this point, I'll ask PP Wanja to quickly do the vote of thanks before we do the essay. Wanja?
Thank you, Prezo. Very honored to do the vote of thanks. So I must say today for me, this is a very interesting conversation. And I'm sure that even just listening to the ladies present, even for us on the call, I remember Keshi said, when she was doing the introduction, what do we do with the kids when they come on for long holiday? And for me, I was just like, yes, and much more. How do we keep them engaged? And then for those of us who are considering, those of us who have transitioned, taking bold steps in looking at what I call alternative ways of doing school, or alternative ways of learning, it's a very exciting space. Wangari, just as you mentioned, when I was doing my research before we transitioned, is when I discovered that there are 2,000 families, more than 2,000 families in Kenya that are actually doing homeschooling. And that there is such a huge community of homeschooling ongoing, and not just in Nairobi, but even outside Nairobi. So that for me was such an exciting discovery. So when you were responding to IPP Joel, I was like, yes, I can relate, because there's that is happening. Ivy, I could relate when you said that there are certain things that changed with regards to not wanting to wake up in the morning. Mine was the constant fights in the morning that we would have, especially when it was time to get ready for school. They used to just kill my mood and my day. So when we started considering transitioning, it was among the things that were at the top. So when you said that, Ivy, I was like, oh, it's not just me alone who had that issue. So I could totally relate. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for the good work that you're doing. Continue doing it. I don't know how we can get your contacts. I don't know whether we go through Keshi or the president, or will you drop them on the chat for us, those of us who would want to get in touch, maybe for further conversation and also just more encouragement as well. But yes, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. Prezo, over to you.